a special interview that I have. This interview will be seen on both the Progressive Queens and on Tracy Takes On. Each of those shows will be in the section link. And as always, please remember to like, share, subscribe, and support us on Patreon. I am joined by my guest, Colin Bird, who is running for office, and I'm going to let him tell which office because for some reason I forgot.
Yeah, so good evening. Thank you so much for having me. It's a beautiful day, and I'm a candidate for U.S. Senate here in the great state of Maryland.
What state again? I'm sorry.
State of Maryland.
Maryland. Okay, so you're not running for a seat in DC, you're running at the local level.
So I'm running for U.S. Senate to represent the state of Maryland in Congress in the U.S. Senate.
Oh, in the Okay, see now thank you for correcting me on that. Thank you.
No
So,
worries.
first question, what what made you come to the decision to run?
Absolutely. So first of all, I'm humbled and grateful right now to serve as the youngest African American mayor in America. Mayor of my hometown, Greenbelt, Maryland, here in Prince George's County, Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. And it's really my experiences as mayor, and some of the things that I've witnessed in terms of the impact of the decisions in Washington on the people that I represent, the people in my community, Greenbelt residents, and really people throughout Prince George's County and the state of Maryland that convinced me, that encouraged me, that motivated me to say, hey, look, I cannot be on the sidelines when it comes to some of these battles in Washington. So I give a few examples, and it's the pandemic in particular that really served as the tipping point and things that happened as part of that in Washington. So, for example, on the first stimulus bill that Congress passed to address the pandemic, the CARES Act, it actually did a number of good things, including providing $1,200 stimulus checks. Frankly, I think it could have been more, but actually the big issue was it provided state and local government aid. But the local government aid that was provided in that bill actually excluded over 99.9% of the municipalities in Maryland. I'm sorry, in America. And that includes small and medium-sized municipalities, small and medium-sized cities and towns like Greenbelt, Maryland. So if you were in a big city like New York or Boston or St. Louis or Detroit, or any other big city, your city got taken care of directly as part of the CARES Act. But if you were in a city like Greenbelt, your city actually did not get that local government aid directly as part of the CARES Act. And that impacted cities and towns all across the state of Maryland. So I was very concerned that Congress, and in particular the U.S. Senate, would allow something like that without fighting for the people of my town, the people of my city, Greenbelt, Maryland. So that's number one. And then one of the most concerning things that really was the tipping point for me to say, you know what, I need to run for U.S. Senate in particular, was looking at the most recent stimulus bill, the American Rescue Plan. And again, that bill did a number of good things. I'm not here to say that it was all bad, but one of the biggest challenges, well, there were several issues with that bill. Number one, they promised $2,000 stimulus checks. And as you know, they ended up cutting $1,400 stimulus checks. They shorted the American people $600. They lied to the American people. They told folks, vote for the Democrats in Georgia. They'll give you $2,000 checks, turned it into $1,400 within a matter of weeks, if not months. That's number one. I thought that type of promise being broken in that callous way was very problematic because that impacts my constituents. Number two, in that bill, they actually in the U.S. Senate stripped the minimum wage, the $15 minimum wage out of the bill. They allowed the Senate parliamentarian to dictate whether the minimum wage would be in the bill instead of ignoring the parliamentarian or supporting the firing of that parliamentarian, because she, and in particular, following her ruling, meant hundreds of thousands more Americans would be left in poverty because they have a minimum wage that is significantly too low. It's $7.25 an hour in these United States of America. Number three, they actually lowered the weekly unemployment benefits that were a part of that bill. And again, this is something that impacts my constituents and people all throughout Maryland who have been laid off or otherwise unemployed, largely as a result of COVID-19 and business impacts and closures that have happened related to that. So, from my standpoint, I was really concerned about that, and I guess I'll close on this point in terms of what drew me into this. We have a Congress and we have U.S. senators who really are out of touch with local communities, and there are several issues happening on a local level where our U.S. senators, and in particular the one that I'm running against, has been absent from the conversation or on the wrong side of it. We have a project called the Maglev that would devastate Greenbelt. It would devastate residential properties, devastate schools locally throughout the county, and it would devastate parks, wildlife, our forest preserve, trees. I mean, you name it. In NASA, our federal agencies, they would be devastated by this project, and yet we don't have a U.S. senator who is opposed to the maglev. And there's a number of issues that we could talk about that fall in the category of a local issue where our U.S. senators aren't on the right side of it. And so I just felt like it was important for the little guy, the little gal, and the people in small and medium-sized cities like Greenbelt to actually be taken seriously by our U.S. Senate, and in particular by U.S. senators here in Maryland.
I have a coughing attack, so I'm going to pause this for a second.
No worries at all.
Okay, so you talked about what made you want to run. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that you're more leaning towards the progressive side of things, as opposed to what we're currently experiencing now. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am. And not only am I more leaning toward the progressive side of things, I think that's one of the biggest issues that we have in Congress is that there's a dearth of progressive leaders in the House and in the U.S. Senate, but even more so in the U.S. Senate. There's only one U.S. senator in America who's a part of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. That is Senator Bernie Sanders, whom I actually served as a delegate to the Democratic National Convention for in 2016. But, even he from time to time, we need to make sure that we keep him honest on certain issues related to progressives' priorities. I support Medicare for all. I support a Green New Deal. And I would be one of those individuals pushing for the caucus and for the Senate as a whole to be moving further in the direction of those types of policy priorities, because frankly, we do have a broken healthcare system, and we do have a climate that is changing at a rate that is threatening the very sustainability and the very viability of this planet, of this country, and of this state. And so, from my standpoint, we can't provide Band-Aid solutions, lukewarm, moderate milquetoast solutions to these types of big issues. One of the things that I've talked about is the fact that I believe in what I call the audacity of progressives. Now, what's the audacity of progressives? The audacity of progressives is the belief that change can't wait, that change has to be big, and that change has to be bold. I believe all of the above are necessary. Ideas when we talk about the type of change that we need in America. And the reason is, I think for too long in America, we've had people focusing on the American dream when what too many people in America actually experience is the American nightmare, right? Police brutality, that's the American nightmare. Poverty, that's the American nightmare. Undereducation, miseducation, that is the American nightmare. Bad healthcare, that is the American nightmare. Sexism, racism, all kinds of ism, those are the American nightmares. And the only way to end a nightmare, you and I know this fundamentally from growing up, is to wake up and rise up. So part of my campaign is to wake the people up. If they are woken up, I do believe that they will rise up and send folks packing that are not standing for the people, standing with the people, and serving the people with the utmost distinction and honor. And so, that's what I think that we really need. We talked about Medicare, we talked about a Green New Deal. We need to ban fracking. We need to expand the Supreme Court, pack the Supreme Court, because we have to undo the injustices that were appointed to the bench by former President Donald Trump, and even prior to that, George Bush, right? We need Black women on the U.S. Supreme Court. The only way we get that done is to expand the court so that can happen ASAP, today, not tomorrow.
You just brought up, I don't know if you watched the podcast, but you just brought up something that I went on a tear about, because I don't understand, and maybe you can explain this to me where I can get it. I'm assuming you're running as a Democrat. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So my thing is with the Democratic Party is they have the power now. They're in the position of power. But for some reason, it's like they don't either want to use it or they don't know how to use it or a combination of the two.
Absolutely. So one of the things and this gets back to what I was saying before about how they campaigned to get the Senate the Senate majority by winning Georgia, and they made a very explicit, clear, unequivocal promise for $2,000 stimulus checks, and yet they get the power and they do the exact opposite. From my standpoint, and I was literally looking at some of this stuff today, even in our state, Republicans are not who we need in Congress, right? They're not who we need in the White House. They're not who we need making decisions in governors' mansions throughout these United States of America. But if we're totally honest with ourselves, there are a lot of Democrats like Joe Manchin, like Kirsten Sinema, but there are also other Democrats within the U.S. Senate and within the U.S. House of Representatives that have policy positions that are adverse to the interests of ordinary Americans, of everyday people like you and me. And so, yeah, I've found it very important for us to not get swept into this notion that every person that has a D behind their name is necessarily going to be of by and for the people, right? We have to start to make these distinctions and to really try to separate the separate things out and really be clear about where people stand on important issues. I'm represented by a U.S. senator who has never co-sponsored a Medicare for All bill, right? And so when you look at the type of healthcare disparities that are omnipresent throughout the state of Maryland, but even in Prince George's County in particular, which is the diabetes capital of the United States of America, I think we have to be cognizant of the challenges that are exacerbated by having a U.S. senator that does not support Medicare for all. When we look at our climate, we have to be worried about a senator who voted for the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, which was negotiated by the Trump administration. Because if you recall, that agreement was a trade deal that was actually opposed by Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, opposed by Senator Chuck Schumer, opposed by many progressive Democrats because it did not do enough to address prescription drug prices, because it did not do enough to address climate change, right? So there are clear consequences to the types of policy decisions that our U.S. senators make, regardless of which party they're in. And if we don't wake up about this stuff, I believe we're going to continue to experience the American nightmare in every way, shape, and form that it can manifest itself. I get another great example: vaccine inequity, right? Vaccine inequity is something that was definitely perpetuated by governors like the governor that represents us, Republican Governor Larry Hogan. But we also need to have a conversation about the fact that the vaccine came from the federal government, right? It was the federal government that was charged with the distribution of the vaccine throughout the United States of America.
Absolutely.
So when we think about how inequitable that vaccine rollout was, how piss poor the vaccine rollout was in states like Maryland, but all throughout the country, we need to ask why we didn't have federal representatives doing more to address vaccine inequity and make sure that rollout was seamless, so that we didn't see more folks, particularly of color, get sick and ultimately die, right? These are critical issues, right? And so that's, things that are on my mind as to why we have to look beyond, Democrat. I support the Democratic Party as much as the next guy. I mean, I voted for Joe Biden over Donald Trump, and that was easy. But until we can tease out the fact that we do need the president to move on Medicare for all, we do need the president to move on fracking, we do need the president to move on these other issues that are tough. I think we're going to continue to experience, like I said, bits and pieces of this American nightmare.
Yeah, and that's a really good point that you're making. I normally don't ask people to talk about their opponents, But I want you to talk about you don't have to name your opponent, but if you want to, you can. Say something, I'll challenge you this way. Say something positive about your candidate.
Yeah, well, that's great. Yeah, I don't have any problem. That's another thing about me. I really don't have any problem saying anything positive about my opponent. So I'll say a number of positive things about him. I think that, you know, especially relative to some other people, he's reasonably accessible to, I would say, an elected official like myself. I've had an opportunity to talk with him on the phone a number of times, and I've also had an opportunity to work with him on a few issues. Um, so I mean, I can say that about him. You know, I think that that's what I can say positive about him. There's some limitations to the way he operates, but I definitely can tell you that I've had an opportunity to work with him, for example, on, trying to address issues around the death penalty, around trying to address issues of symbols of white supremacy here in the state of Maryland, and on trying to recognize tremendous Marylanders who are Marylanders of color, or Black Marylanders like Harriet Tubman. So, I've had an opportunity to interface with him on those types of issues, and I found him to be reasonably responsible in those types of issues. But again, it's not enough.
Yeah, understand. Now I'm gonna flip the question. You brought it up, so talk about the limitations of the candidate and where you stand different as opposed to the candidate.
So again, he does not support Medicare for all. I think that's really bad when we start talking about America's broken healthcare system. That's what we need, is Medicare for all. Beyond that, like I said, he supported the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement. He did not fight for small and medium-sized municipalities when it came to the CARES Act and with these stimulus bills that harms local communities and the people who live in them. In this most recent stimulus bill, his chamber, and he's part of that chamber, stripped the minimum wage out of the stimulus bill, lowered the weekly unemployment benefits, and broke its own promise regarding $2,000 stimulus checks. Beyond that, I can tell you that, for me, the big challenge is, like I give one great example. So a lot of times the things that he does do right, I think he has to be really begged and pleaded on. Whereas I kind of try to be more proactive and really do the right thing without being begged, right? I think if you have power, you should do something good with it for the good with it for the people without it, without being begged. I believe that he thinks that if you have power, you should sit on it. For the people without it, for the people with it, no questions asked. And if you make that distinction and you understand that distinction, you know that while he may do some good things from time to time, the big limitation is the difficulty it takes to get him to yes, the difficulties that it takes to get him to the right position on an issue. I'll give another great example. We talked about Medicare for all, but I'll give a local issue, and that is the Red Line. That is a project that was actually, it's a transit project that was actually canceled by our incumbent Republican governor, Larry Hogan. And that was a very bad move by him. But I think that the Senate and I think Congress should be pushing to revive that project, particularly as part of this infrastructure bill, and particularly in terms of advocacy with the U.S. Department of Transportation. However, here's the issue. I not only think that they should revive that project, I think that they need to reopen the civil rights investigation that was opened up by the Obama administration into Governor Hogan's cancellation of that project, because it's not just enough to revive the project. We also need to hold the Hogan administration accountable for canceling that project, because that cancellation of that project had a disproportionately negative impact on Black Marylanders, and in particular, Black Baltimoreans, Black residents of Baltimore. There were civil rights violations and allegations associated with his cancellation of that project, and we cannot turn a blind eye to that injustice as we move forward on this infrastructure bill and start to address the transit gaps that continue to remain in places like Baltimore, transit gaps that negatively impact access to jobs and economic opportunity for folks in that region of the state.
Yeah, that was great. I want you to talk about briefly as you're campaigning amidst this pandemic, some of the challenges that you're facing. Do you have a volunteer staff? I'm pretty sure they're not going door to door necessarily, not during this pandemic, or maybe they are. I don't know. What kind of measures are you taking to reach out to the masses during this pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously we're using, virtual methods to communicate, social media, that type of thing, because of course, there's a lot of guidelines that remain in place around social distancing. Of course, things are getting a little better because now folks are getting vaccinated. The percentage of people who is fully vaccinated in the region and in the state, though, is not quite high enough for us to act like there's no pandemic. We're still living in a global pandemic, and we should be acting like it. Um, you know, Look, this pandemic has been, again, part of that American nightmare, right? We've seen people get sick. We've seen scores of people die. And we've also seen massive impacts on local businesses, economic impacts that are tremendous on ordinary Americans. And those include so many people that I represent and so many people that I hope to represent as the next U.S. Senator from the state of Maryland. So you have that, and then you compound that with the fact that, in this country, there's a real reckoning that has been going on, not only over the past year, but certainly heightened over the past year around racial injustice, right? Around the treatment of people of color, and in particular African Americans, and even more particular African American men by law enforcement, but not just African American men, but also women like Breonna Taylor. And I mean, you name Dante, right? I mean, you name the person. There are so many names that kind of are either in a graveyard or on the wrong end of excessive force in American history, and on the wrong end of the justice system, right? For every George Floyd that has a killer that actually gets convicted, think about how many individuals don't get convicted, and the type of trauma that has on the family, and beyond the family, the community, and beyond the community, the county, the state, and the country, as we agonize about the state of race relations and the state of justice in this country. I remember that I first got interested in a lot of this stuff in the wake of the killing of Trayvon Martin in Sanford, Florida, right? In the wake of the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, right? I say all of this to say that this is probably the most challenging time in American history for anybody to be a leader. And so I don't take it lightly, the challenges that the incumbent U.S. Senator faces in navigating these challenges. But I think as a young Black man, as the youngest African American mayor in America, and as the mayor of Greenbelt, Maryland, I think I have something unique to offer in terms of, weaving that experience, right? Weaving that observation, that on the ground observation and perspective about some of this stuff into public policy that can be meaningful, transformative, and powerful, impactful for the people in this great state. So I look forward to the opportunity to kind of bring all of those attributes to bear.
Now, are you approaching because I don't know, is your opponent a Democrat also, or is he on a Republican?
Yeah. So I'm sorry. So yeah. So my opponent is he's a Democrat. Now here's another thing that I just want to add in as a caveat. He may or may not run for re-election, right? This is not guaranteed. Sometimes people do retire unexpectedly early. There are a lot of extenuating circumstances that can impact whether somebody actually ends up being on the ballot in 2022. But as it stands, the incumbent will be running again. I don't see any specific indication to suggest otherwise. And yes, he's a Democrat. He's a more conservative Democrat, of course, but he is a Democrat. I'll give him that. I will say that our Republican governor, Larry Hogan, is rumored to be considering a run for U.S. Senate here in the great state of Maryland. And I think that it's also important for us to be mindful of that as we think about the primary, because we want to ultimately be successful if he does step up and run for U.S. Senate here in Maryland. I think I could actually be more effective in a campaign against him than the incumbent U.S. Senator.
So your election, is it this year or next year?
Yeah, it's June of 2022.
Oh, so okay, so you
So
did
it's
what
next year.
okay, so I love when people prepare because I've always complained about that with candidates don't know. I'm like, why are you waiting until 3 weeks
We're
before decide to run? I don't.
no, we're gonna get in on the ground floor, and we're gonna build this ground up.
Yeah. Now, what I did see from you, and I probably should have saved this question at the end. Do you have a website for people that want to learn more about your campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for asking. My website is colinbyrdforsenate.com. So that's going to be COLINBYRDFOR Senate.com. I think as well, if folks want to get a hold of me, they can obviously reach me on Twitter, twitter.com/Mayor Byrd, at Mayor Byrd. That's Bird with a Y. And then on Facebook at Vote Colin Byrd. On Facebook at Vote Colin Byrd. But yeah, those are three really good ways to get a hold of me. And I can also share, my email address, which is colinaByrd@gmail.com. Again, it's colinaByrd@gmail.com. I used to give out my cell phone number, and I'm happy to do that on a case by case basis. But things are getting to the point where maybe that's not the most prudent thing for me to do with most folks.
Now, as you're, you said you had some challenges, of course, campaigning with COVID, but as I'm sure you're speaking to people who you ultimately want to vote for you, what kind of concerns are they raising to you?
I mean, like I said, this is a devastating pandemic. I think that's top of mind for so many people. The vaccine, um, and that's getting better. That issue is getting better. We're hearing less of that being an access issue now than it was at the beginning. But that's definitely an issue. Also, just all of the economic issues in and around the pandemic, right? So people, housing security issues, food security issues. Um, beyond that, transportation is becoming something I'm hearing more about. Um, Also, healthcare. The vaccine is one thing, but really thinking through the broader healthcare issues that people face both before and after this pandemic is a big deal. Pre-existing conditions, right? Those are things that a lot of people grapple with. And the price of healthcare, the price of prescription drugs. Those are some of the big things. And of course, again, I can't stress this enough, issues around justice and equity, whether it's on a racial level, whether it's from a racial perspective or a gender perspective or, really any other type of, all of the isms. Those are things that I think are really, really critical to folks right now. Just we want to turn the page on all of the darkest chapters in American history, but it's almost like the pages are stuck, right? And it's tough to kind of to get to that next step. And so, you know, I think that's part of what folks are really been talking with me about.
I also love to raise this issue with candidates that I get to interview, and I want to talk about fundraising. We know that money is necessary to run campaigns. However, it seems as though we have politicians on both sides, whether they got a D behind their name or R behind their name, they're emboldened to the corporations. What is it that you can tell a supporter of yours that would make you stand out from all the others that take the corporate PAC money?
Well, step one is I don't take that corporate PAC money, right? I don't raise money from those type of interests. I mean, I don't raise money from developers and high powered corporate lobbyists and none of that, right? So in some ways that puts me at a disadvantage when it comes to raising a bunch of money from small number of individuals. But I think there's an advantage in the sense that I can continue to be beholden to the people, right, rather than the people in power. And so I'm grateful that we are able to kind of run without those encumbrances. But yeah, that's something that I would say is a real distinction. And look, look, money talks, right? And folks should follow the money, and get a sense of who's calling the shots with some of these politicians, right? Because oftentimes when you take a look at the sources of their money, you get a sense for the sources of their public policy. And so, when you think about the impact that big pharma has had on politicians, including the one that I'm running against, right? You start to understand why he may vote a certain way on certain issues. When you think about the impact that the defense industry, big warmongering companies have had on these politicians, you start to really get a sense of what's going on. And when you think about the types of impacts that these wealthy individuals have, you start to get a sense of why certain politicians tend to be less apt to tax the rich. And so, these are things that we need to do, though, right? We need to tax the rich. We need that revenue, because with that revenue, we can really start to solve in a really meaningful way the problems of these United States of America, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's economic, whether it's healthcare, whether it's educational or otherwise, right? These things all look. Vision is great, but vision without money is hallucination. I'll say that again. Vision is great, but vision without money is hallucination.
Exactly.
So I'm less concerned about the money that's coming into my campaign coffers than I am with the money that's coming into the treasury of the United States of America that we can use to benefit the American people. And that's why we need to tax the rich. That's why we need to tax these corporations. But again, those donations sometimes get in the way of the type of public policy that we need.
Yeah, and that's we talk about that all the time on the Progressive Queens, all the time, because it's really sad to see how some of these politicians have bended their ears towards, okay, I'll do X, Y, and Z because you gave $100,000 to me, and their decisions are being rooted by the dollars that they get. And if I was I'm a voter, but if I was a person that never voted, I don't know if I would want to vote, because my thought would be, well, aren't they all the same? And I'm glad that you made that distinction first, that you don't take, political action committee money, because that makes a huge difference in terms of, speaking to a voter saying, hey, no, I'm going to be different because of this, this, and this, and I won't be beholden to, I don't know, ABC Corporation. I'll be beholden to you. And so I think that's really, really important that you made that distinction. And I'm glad that you did it voluntarily. That just made a huge difference. So thank you for that. But I did want to do a couple more things here, and I want to play word association. I'm going to give you a word or a person's name, and the first thing that comes to your mind, just say it. Cool. So the first name I will give you is Joe Manchin.
I'm not that good at this, I guess. Conservative.
Oh, you didn't say Democrat. Okay. Okay. How about Bernie Sanders?
Compassionate.
Okay, that's a good one. Jamal Bowman.
Champion.
Final one, Joe Biden.
Good-natured. I know that's kind of 2 words, but it's hyphenated.
Oh, you're gonna. I had a different word for Joe Biden, but since you're the one I'm interviewing you and not the other way around, I will just I will not say mine. But those were pretty good. You should be thankful, because I gave the first person I did this Donald Trump. We ended up going down a rabbit hole. She was like, that guy's just evil. I'm like, okay, no, I said one word.
Right.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. But the other thing I wanted to touch on, this last question, of course, I already asked you about your social medias and how you're campaigning, is what if I were in Maryland and you were trying to speak to me or anybody in Maryland rather about why it is they should vote for you, what one your number one policy would be, and how would you go about getting that number one policy done?
Yeah, I would definitely say Medicare for all. And the way I would go about getting it done is to work with my colleagues and to really work with the people who we represent here in Maryland across the country to kind of make it, a thing that's driven bottom up and make it clear to my colleagues that there's a mandate for us to do something really bold and really transformative when it comes to our healthcare system. Obamacare was something that definitely helped provide insurance to millions of Americans. But if we're candid, there are still scores of Americans who continue to lack health insurance, and even beyond that, there are many more who lack health insurance that is as affordable as they need it to be. And so, from my standpoint, that is what I would focus probably most on is Medicare for all, candidly.
Well, I want to thank you for. I know we had a whole lot of troubles getting this together, so I'm glad that you were flexible enough to work with me on my ever changing schedule. Good luck in your campaign. I hope to hear more from your campaign. And of course, offer is always open. If you ever want to be a panelist, be sure to hit me up and I will definitely make it happen. Thank you so much for this time, and I greatly, greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Carson. It was a pleasure. You have a
Oh,
blessed
no,
rest of
just
the day.
Tracy. Don't. I'm not old. Just Tracy. Tracy is fine.
Thank you, Tracy. It
Thank
was a
you.
pleasure. You have a blessed rest of the day.
Thank you so much and have a great evening. Bye bye. Okay, everyone, that was a great interview. So, again, remember to like, share, subscribe, and support us on Patreon. This interview will be on both the Progressive Queens and Tracy Takes On. So, tune in. And I want to say, have a great evening because it's evening when we're doing this taping. So, I will see you all later. Bye bye. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tracy Takes On, the show that talks about all things politics and the impact that it has on our daily lives. I'm joined today by my panelist, Charles, today, and we're going to get started right off with our favorite New York used to be mayor, Giuliani. For some reason, he still thinks that Trump is going to bail him out. And I just keep saying, does he not know Donald Trump? Does he not know that Donald Trump doesn't care anything about him? Is there something he's missing? Or what's going on with Giuliani?
You know, it might be an age thing because, now he's on the out there on the lecture circuit saying he's been framed, and everybody knows what he did. If you're paying attention to what's going on, and they know it's wrong what he did, and he's out there by himself. So I guess, like you say, we just gotta wait and see what happens. Maybe he's just freaking out because he he doesn't have any support and he doesn't know how to deal with the situation he's in.
But you would think, I mean, he's a lawyer, so you would think he would have enough common sense not to go on television and talk about the case. He just keeps going to Fox News talking about he's been framed and he's got the goods on Joe. It's like, shut up. Do you not know to shut up? Just don't say anything. Just say no comment and keep it moving. But he just keeps talking and talking. I'm like, okay, he must not have paid attention when that, like, how is he the lawyer for someone? It's like, he's making me question like the whole legal system. I'm like, if this guy can get a degree in law, what's stopping me? Because apparently he's either that or he's just not taking his own advice.
Yeah, but that saying that a lawyer is a fool to have himself as a client, and he's not a lawyer right now. He's a client, a suspect. So he's just not. I don't think he's experienced on being on that side of the law. He might been a pretty good prosecutor. I've never seen him in court as a prosecutor, but as a client, he just sounds very foolish.
It's like, so, well, you would think if he has legal representation, why would you then go on Fox and appear by yourself? Usually, when someone does an interview and they're accused of something, they'll have their lawyer sitting right there next to them. And then the lawyer will interject and say, oh, no, we can't answer XYZ question. This genius is going on there all by himself, incriminating himself. And I'm just like, shut up. Are you serious? Don't say any, don't say anything. But there is another train of thought that I wanted to explore. And it's the possibility that he may turn on Trump if Trump refuses to bail, get him out of this situation. And I'm not sure if that won't happen.
Well, he says he has insurance, but he hasn't divulged what that insurance is. And I'm sure if it comes down to a plea deal, that the only plea deal he could make is to turn on Trump. So yeah, so let's see where that goes.
So I'm wondering, is he using this like he's going on TV and talking? Is he trying to bait 45? Is he trying to bait him into doing something? Because we know Trump he's not very bright. He's extremely petty. Is he going to come back with something that he knows about Giuliani? If Giuliani comes back at something with him, this whole thing is just a mess with him. I'm just like, look, you did what they said you did, plead guilty, do a couple years in prison, and then come back out.
Well, yeah, I mean, in a real world, I don't think Trump is going to do anything because, anytime accusations were made against him from a different person, no matter who it was, he would always come back, well, you have to talk to that person. So I just don't think he's going to admit anything unless Giuliani actually have physical evidence, not just what he says. I just don't think that that'd be a he said situation, and I don't think that Trump would lose in that type of battle. You know, if I think Giuliani would have to have some kind of physical proof to cause Trump to have a lot of legal problems.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to, because there was parts of the whole story that I didn't understand. I'm like, okay, I think I understand why they raided him in the first place. What I didn't get was the whole Hunter Biden connection. That's where I'm like, okay, I'm losing you. You're not making sense to me. But I guess that's just that's a kind of a deflecting that the Republican Party seems to have now, um, that they're doing.
Well, that's because they couldn't get anything on Joe Biden himself. So they went after the son and to try to concoct something on him. And I think where Giuliani overstepped the line was when he said, you know, he wasn't over there trying to, in a capacity as a government official. He was over there as a private citizen. So, you know, so what he's saying is that supposedly is incriminating him, trying to get a foreign government to uh, help with the election, which is supposedly illegal. So,
I mean, and I always think, you know, with the way the Congress is now, you have a majority in in the Congress, and then you have a slim majority in the Senate. If they couldn't convict Trump of those first two charges, well, no, it wouldn't even go to impeachment because he's not. Oh goodness, he's not even president anymore. That would now go through the courts because he's a private citizen. I
you know,
didn't even.
that's that's what I said in the beginning. Impeachment was a waste of time. They should have been taking this to criminal court in the first place. And I'm waiting for these memo or uh, to be unredacted that Barr had sent out, that this judge, I think Amy Jackson, I believe, that she's wants this memo released, and they probably want this the Mueller report released unredacted to the public, so everybody can see what Trump actually did. Because what it's like, Barr just obstructed justice, and I wouldn't be surprised if they come at him too at a little bit later date.
You know, that's an interesting point because he's in a particular situation where it's rumored that he can't even find employment, which you worked for Donald Trump. What were you actually expecting? But if he's indicated or indicted, I think he's the one that has all the secrets.
Yeah,
'Cause he's
like I say, that report would probably tell it all, and that he should have been charged in criminal court instead of wasting their time in doing the impeachment, because they knew that this impeachment wasn't going to work. It didn't work the first time. What made them think that it was going to work a second time? You're just not going to get 60 votes, and what you had, like, you would have needed like 13 Republicans to
come over, and that wasn't going to happen.
yeah, so that was just a waste of time. It was a waste of money. uh, they could have been doing other things, but if this had went to criminal court, I think it would have been a different outcome. And then come back to impeachment after it went through criminal court. Because if he was convicted in criminal court, well, it's a good chance that he would he would be successfully convicted in the Senate, or else he would have just resigned.
Well, he's still, Trump is still facing, he's still not on Facebook, so he can't fundraise the way he used to. So I'm wondering, is he gonna, I'm pretty sure if he's not in jail, he's going to run in 2024. I can almost guarantee it. Only thing that's going to stop him from running is he gets convicted. That's the only thing that I can even sit here and think, okay, now what's gonna stop him? And now that he's not allowed on Facebook, his primary source of fundraising is now gone, which is great news for me. But I wonder, if you, and I don't even know how to phrase this question. If someone is a Trump supporter, I always wonder why. Because I hear people like Caitlyn Jenner talking like he he ruffled the system and he did anything. And I'm like, name something that he did. I can't name anything in that last administration that was done that benefited anyone but the rich and powerful. At least with Biden, as much as I poo poo at the way he's handling things, at least now you have a good number of Americans vaccinated, which I think is good. Um, we did get um, stimulus checks, although again, I don't think it was enough. So those two things I can point to. Trump, I'm just like, okay, let me point at maybe the 1200 and then the 600, which was 1800, maybe that. But it took a long time in between those months to even get that passed.
I just don't believe he's gonna be able to run because he just got too much baggage, and he still had, let's set aside Giuliani. He still has other legal issues that he has to deal with. Not counting Giuliani. I mean, that's just something else to add in. Maybe when this report is leaked, or they go after Barr. See what Barr. You you go after the people around the one you really want, and then you make a deal so they'll turn on that person that you really want. And that's who, Trump is the one this that they really want. I think the DOJ they're pretty busy right now. I mean, they're out there on the road. I think, they're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to right what Trump, all the wrongs that he did, or the inaction that he taken when he should have taken action.
I think that's an important note too, because they're going to be busy for at least the next 3 years trying to undo all the things that they're doing, bringing charges against some of these cops that are who think they're judge, jury, and executioner. They're gonna be keeping busy. But I wanted to move on to our next subject for discussion, and that is Matt Gaetz. This man will not go away. I don't know why. Him and Marjorie Taylor Greene have now formed the America First tour, where they've decided they're going to tour America and talk about America first. Personally, this is just, it's so obviously racist that I can't even bear to look at those two on TV. But I don't know if you have a chance to learn more about what America First is. I looked at some of their points, and all it was Trump really won the election. Let's get rid of the immigrants, etc. I'm like, okay, I can't. No, I'm not going to listen to this.
Well, I think it's a big problem, and it has me a little concerned on riling up idiots to go out here and do stupid stuff. Uh, you know, it's like they want wait, purity. When they use the word purity, you know, I think they're talking about white purity. And you know, it's wow, you know, that's tripping me out, you know. It might be time for me to get a gun or assault rifle to keep in my house in case something jumps off, because nothing surprises me. Uh,
I think what's surprising me is that the public who supports them can't see that they obviously don't believe. They know good and well Trump lost the election. They know good and well he lost. They know Biden won, but yet they keep stirring this whole Trump was robbed and Trump was at, like, stop. I can't believe that the public doesn't see through their phoniness because I can clearly see it. I'm like, they don't believe. There's no way that they can believe that. There's no way.
so I'm not sure if the public really believes that either as a majority, you know, it's like Congress just keeps pushing this lie and you know they're passing these laws to be able to suppress votes the next time around. I just hope people are ready because I don't think that they'll win in the courts to have these laws changed. So, you know, you just comply and you got enough time to comply. So it's no excuse, well, I didn't know this. You know, well, I guess you weren't paying attention if you don't know, you know, because the word is getting out, you know, this is, we can't do this, we can't do that. So, wow, you know, you be ready for what you can do to to win this election, win some more Senate seats, because it should be like about a third. I don't know how many seats
I
would be
think it's in
available.
the 20s. It's either 18 or 22. It's one or the other, and I can never remember which one. But there's quite a few Senate seats that are coming up.
Okay, well, you know, if they can win that, then you know, then you can start changing stuff. But you know, you got to start winning stuff in your state too, because
Exactly.
the state has their rights. You know, the federal government can only tell the state only so much to do. You know, they don't have complete sovereignty over the states. The state has their rights also.
No. Yeah, and I think what's bothering me about this America First coalition group, whatever they want to call themselves, I'm just like, just call yourselves the KKK and let's just get this whole thing over with. I mean, their language is so it's so racist. And usually when people are racist, I just ignore them. And I would love to ignore these two because they're the perfect pair. One is the idiot and the other one is the idiot. But this kind of thing that I just see seeping up, if it continues and we don't call it out, it's going to get worse. And it's going to be to the point where a black person like myself is going to be looking over their shoulder all the time to see, okay, am I safe to go out? I mean, not that that's going to stop me from going out, but I'm going to be more careful than I am now because there's literally Trump supporters out here believing things that these two nitwits and their other Republican cohorts are saying. And it really bothers me that people can't see who they really are. What's two racist people getting up there talking.
Well, and then you have to see where the law enforcement, who they're going to side with, because that's the very important. You know, you start putting these people in jail, uh, possibly having to shoot them, then you know, then you see things slow down, people change their mind and stuff. But if the police start siding with this America First group, then it's gonna be a big problem.
And that's another thing, because there's some reports even in the military that there's white supremacy in the military and the police department. Who's to say? Well, in my opinion, it's already spilling out into the general public, but I don't hear anybody addressing, while you can't change people's mind, you can certainly make it so legislatively that they have to change their minds. But I just
No,
don't see
not
it.
change their minds. It's you have to be able to suppress their beliefs. You make stuff illegal and you start enforcing it, then they will change their course of action. It's not that they change their mind. It's that, well, I
No,
guess
no, that's what I said.
I
You
guess
can't make laws to change their minds and hearts. If they're racist, they're just racist, and that's what they are. But you can certainly penalize them to the point where it's like, oh, okay, I can't go around beating up people because they're black, or
yeah.
I can't, as a cop, target black people to arrest because, well, he's black. That's what I definitely mean. But I wanted to talk about also today, and I know we're going pretty fast, but there's a whole lot going on. Um, some of the governors are now cutting off unemployment dollars to their residents because they apparently believe that by getting $300 a week, that's preventing people from working.
Well, I'm not, you know, if a person ain't got a job, then they ain't got a job. If they go out looking for a job, don't mean they're going to get hired for a job. So, so you just can't, I don't think you can really cut that off. That's federal money.
Well, there are two states that have cut the funds off because when they give, from what I was researching, when the federal government gives those dollars to the state can do pretty much whatever they want to once it's in their hands. And there's two states at least, and I forget which two states. I want to say Wyoming and Utah. I know one of them is Utah, and they've actually passed legislation to cut off unemployment checks because they feel like, some employers are complaining that they can't find workers. My point is, why don't you pay a wage that people would be incentivized to work for you, and then maybe people would apply for jobs, but that's just me.
Well, like I say, suppose the job isn't available. Everybody can't do the same job. So if it's not available or if it's not safe, because I know here, I think they just added the federal added another stipulation for the pandemic unemployment assistance, that if you don't feel the place is safe of COVID, I guess that's another reason not to return to work. Uh, some places have just closed up and haven't reopened. So it, Wyoming, I don't think it's not that many people from Wyoming anyway. I
Well,
mean,
my point to bring that
Wyoming
up is that,
doesn't.
the two states that are doing these are Republican-led states, and I can already see down the pike. It's already it talks in Texas of doing this. Our favorite state of Florida is already in talks to do something like this. And so I think, like, how many Republican governors we have? Like 30. We only have 12 or 22. No, we have 22 Democratic governors, which would leave 50 minus 30. I can't add, but whatever the difference is, most of the governors are Republican. If they do this like these other two states, that's going to lead to massive, massive poverty. You're going to have people going into poverty with food lines and.
Well, I just hope that they remember that come election time.
Now that's what I want the Democratic Party to do, is to make sure that when they get up for re-election, they say, hey, this governor signed a bill that said that you couldn't get money.
Well, and they're already up in arms about the voter suppression. So that's just something else to add on to, in the real world, to sway people away from the Republican Party. Why would I want to vote for this party when, I can't get any help or assistance from the government?
Well, you always have those people that say, well, there's jobs. Yeah, you always have those people that say, well, there's jobs at McDonald's. Yes, there's jobs at McDonald's. However, not everybody is suited to work at McDonald's. Even though people think, oh, it's an easy job, it's not. Working in the service industry is never, ever easy. There's a certain skill set that it takes to do any job, whether it's cleaning or being a doctor or being a lawyer, whatever. There's a certain skill set that each job has.
First of all, they already have people working at McDonald's. So how many jobs is McDonald's going to be able to supply to the pool of the workforce? I don't think it's that many jobs at McDonald's.
Oh no, I said people always use that excuse. Oh, there's jobs that. I'm like, no.
Well,
there's not always jobs there.
Do people just say something. They again perpetuating a lie. It's just, yeah, we got a problem. And you wonder what's happening now. Is this going to be the new normal? We still got a disease that it's not gone away yet.
No. 20 million people in India have been infected or have died because of the COVID vaccine.
And those people probably travel, so you don't know how many people might be bringing it to other countries. I mean, we have a lot of people that come here in Phoenix, IT people from India. So, you just don't.
And we still have the variants out there that nobody knows about. I'm like, okay, how are these variants going to act?
Right, and the vaccine, I don't know if it's working. Until I can take my mask off and be able to undo social distancing, then I really don't know how effective that vaccine is.
Well, like I said, I've had my second injection, so I'm fully vaccinated. And I still wear mine anytime I go out. If I'm going out even to walk, I have my mask on. So it's changed in the sense of, yes, I'm protecting myself. If somebody gives me COVID, I won't suffer as much as I would if I didn't have it. But it's not enough, like you said, it's not enough to say, oh, I'm just gonna not wear a mask at all. And there's still, to a lot of businesses' credit, they're still requiring face masks before you can even enter into the places.
Right. That's here in Phoenix. We don't have a mandatory mask requirement, but still all the stores or hospitals or pretty much any facility here, if you enter, you have to have your mask on. So I respect that. I'm glad that people seem to not have a problem with it. I
Well,
haven't.
yeah, you must live a different place than I do because we have people that have a problem with it. Some people are even to the point that really infuriates me is they wear the mask, but they aren't wearing it properly, which really, I'm like, why are you taking the point of wearing a mask, but you have it on just your mouth? No, you're supposed to have it over your nose and your mouth both. But I'll see people with their mask strapped down, and you'll look at them and say, "Could you put your mask on?" And it's big attitudes. And I don't know, is that just the environment that I'm going in, or is this a prevalent problem across a broader spectrum?
I, I'm not sure. I can only speak for where I'm at, and I'm in Maricopa County. That's probably I hear now about the third largest county in America, and it's a Democrat county, and I guess maybe that could be too why people are adhering to wearing the mask. I mean, there's some Republicans here, but this is pretty much a Democrat county. I mean, that's why they're here having that audit. They're not having those audits in Republican counties. All across America, they're still counting them here. It doesn't make a difference what they come up with. It's not. It's no integrity. They've taken the integrity out of the audit. They don't even know how. I don't even think they know how to even conduct an audit, and they're just making up stuff as they go along, just to get the results that they were looking for. I don't even know why they're wasting their time going through the motions. Just come on, just go on and perpetuate that lie that you've been perpetuating since the election ended.
Well, that all started because the legislatures decided to hire some company that had no experience in audit counting. They hired an outside, like I said, when a person says I want to audit, that shouldn't even been taxpayer support. Those people that voted for it, they should have all chipped in and said, okay, I'll put in, I don't know how much the company is charging, but like, why make the taxpayers bear that expense? And then what happens, which probably won't, if they find out, oh, Biden won by even bigger margins. That happened in Michigan, that happened in Georgia, where they recounted it, and he won by even more votes than they had thought. So I don't know. I just think, you know, it's really petty and they're wasting time. And if they came out and said, oh, Trump won, I wouldn't trust it because there were reports they were marking ballots, changing, they could have changed the votes. How do I know they didn't change the votes? They aren't being supervised by anyone. They're just doing this, from my understanding, they're just doing this and nobody from the election.
No type of oversight. Yeah, that's what it is. They don't have any type
Yeah,
of
they have no oversight. So
oversight.
how am I to trust if they say, oh, well, Trump won? Well, how do I know that? Nobody did an independent count. So,
Well,
and
we had three counts here prior to that. So, and all of them said that Trump won. Now, all of a sudden, you have this
you mean Biden won?
a partisan. I'm sorry, Biden won, and then now you have this partisan audit going on. You don't have any government officials. You don't have any elected officials there to oversee to make sure that this audit is being truthful. So that's why it says no integrity in the audit. You can come back with whatever you want. It's not gonna mean nothing.
Yeah. And when I heard one of the people who were counting saying something about bamboo in the ballot, I'm like, okay, y'all got to be. I thought he was joking until I looked at his face and thought, this man is really serious. This man is really seriously saying bamboos in the ballot. Is he joking? I don't know why it's so hard for them to accept you lost. When most politicians lose a race, they will at least say, you know what, I tried, I lost, and that's it. These people, either they're drinking Kool-Aid, they're on something that should be illegal, or they're just completely stupid. You lost. Get over it. You lost. There's 2024. You can get a candidate to run against Biden then if he chooses to run and go from there. Just move on. You lost. Go away. You lost. And I don't know why the Republican Party keeps selling this lie about why they keep wanting to believe they won when clearly they didn't win.
I think the only true election fraud that they found so far has been in Pennsylvania. And the one guy, he pleaded guilty, and the judge gave him probation. This was a Republican. And I can only imagine how Crystal Mason feels, because she's
Yep.
sitting in prison for 5 years
5 years.
because she didn't know she was supposed to vote, and because she was a felon. And man,
Well, you know the difference. She's black and the other guy was white. So let me.
well, yeah, I know that's what it is, but I'm saying, you the court, it just show, that that's just open racism when you say this guy knowingly committed a crime and you give him probation. It's just I'm just waiting to see what happens in this next election, because it's like the state wants to have the power to say these votes are fraud. We don't trust this over here, so we'll make the determination ourselves. Hey, why vote then if that's what y'all gonna do?
I hope people don't do that, and I hope that this kind of thing does go to court. I don't know if the Supreme Court. I would hope they would have enough sense to say you can't do these type of things, but who knows? With 3 Trump appointees in there, they could very well just say, you know what? Oh well, it's a law. Deal with it. I wish that the bill that's in the Senate would pass, but for some reason the Democrats still won't push to remove that filibuster that it's going to take to pass it. Like if you could do just that and get to those 51 votes, and yes, I think Manchin could be convinced to vote in your favor, and I do think Sinema could be convinced to vote in your favor. You would have it, and that would supersede, all of these ridiculous laws, especially the one in Georgia. Georgia is probably the worst offender of all of them, because they're saying you can't even give a drink of water to somebody who's standing in a voting line. Are you serious?
Well, I think I think because the whole world knows about that, I think they backed off of that a little.
No, he signed it.
Well, yeah, but are you gonna really enforce that?
Yeah, because I'm ready to get some bottled waters and go to Georgia. I'm like, please arrest me, because I'm just gonna take some bottled waters, and anybody I see, hey, here you go, here you go, here you go.
Well, I'll sell somebody some water. I'll sell it for a penny or a nickel. I didn't give it to him then. I sold it to him. So that you didn't say that was a crime. So what's the problem with that?
It shouldn't even come down to that. And they said you couldn't send somebody food. First of all, why is it taking 8 hours to vote? I don't know. That's a problem right there.
Because they won't open more polling places.
And then they won't do it by mail, which would be the easiest thing to do, is just have everybody mail in their ballots. which is
Yeah, but then that's, that too might backfire on them because they had a lot of Republicans do the same thing. So now they won't be able to mail in their ballots.
no.
So,
If everybody got to mail in their ballots, like they
no,
do in Oregon, whether
huh?
you're Democrat or Republican, you can still vote for whoever you want to. You just mail your ballot in instead of standing outside for 8 hours.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If they restrict the mail-in ballots, then that means you have to stand in line. And that's going to affect Republicans, both Republicans and Democrats. It's not just going, Democrats aren't the only ones that voted absentee, and then in previous elections, uh, absentee wasn't a problem because when those ballots came back, the majority of the time they were Republican votes. This time Democrats voted mail-in, and now it's a problem.
Yeah, and I'm like, when I did my mail-in ballot, well, I didn't vote in the general mail-in because I didn't do it because Indiana is stupid and we changed all of our vote by mail laws, so we couldn't. But that primary, it was so easy. All I had to do was make sure I had it in the mail 5 days before. It got there, it got counted. I didn't have to stand in line, get up there, show my ID. I just mailed it in, easy peasy. There you go. But of course, I don't think the Republicans thought, although it was a pandemic, I don't know why they didn't see that coming. I mean, it's like they're cutting off their nose despite their face. Here's their face, but they're just gonna cut off their nose and it doesn't even matter. Because it's like they don't even think that Republicans vote by mail. Older white Republicans do not stand out in line. They always, from the ones I know, they always get that ballot early. They always, I know very few that will stand in line. And now
Well,
they're saying,
I don't think that they restricting seniors. It's,
no, but
I
what I'm
think,
saying is if they restrict the mail-in ballots the way some of these states are talking about, that's going to affect the older voter.
no, I think they exempted them from, uh, they're still allowed to vote. It's the rest of the population that they want to ban, make them come to the polls and
So I'm
vote.
assuming they would do that for the people who are disabled, etc.
Well, you have to have a real good excuse why
Like if
you,
you're in a nursing home, you should still be able to vote.
well, I agree. I'm sure that, in extenuating circumstances, that you would be able to apply to vote for mail-in ballot. You know,
It,
I,
it's
I'm
way
not
more.
sure exactly what what it entails, and in each state, they have different. It's almost the same, but they what they have, it's just different. It's from each state. I don't know what Indiana's doing. uh Arizona, we've been voting. I've been here since 2014, so that's what, 7 years, and it's been no problem to vote mail in. They don't have long lines at their at the polling stations. Soon as I get my ballot, fill it out, take it, go down to the board of election and put it into the ballot box. Or, well, before I was going inside and dropping it off, but during the COVID, it was closed. Uh, so they had a ballot drop box outside to put it in. But
Yeah. And there's two states that completely do mail-in ballots. and that's Oregon and I believe Washington State. Both of those two states don't even have I think you can vote at the polls, but it's very few polling sites because the majority of their voters are mailing in their ballots, which I think it could be done, but it's a matter of do state governors want it?
Well, I mean, if you have the majority in your Congress, then I guess you can make these laws and get away with it. But I just think it's just going to backfire. I mean, because they're doing this because they're afraid. If they thought that everybody was going to vote Republican, they wouldn't be doing this. But they know that they're not, and when they saw what happened in this past election, this is their reaction to it. Well, we're going to react, regroup, and try to suppress things for the upcoming election in 2022.
Yeah,
The midterm.
exactly. And I wanted to move on to I know that's cutting it off, but I wanted to move on to our last topic of the evening, and that is the Republican Party's I don't know what to call it. The Republican Party is wanting to remove Liz Cheney from her position. From I think she's like the third ranking Republican, and they want to remove her of that because for some reason, I guess telling the truth is just not something that the Republican Party wants to do anymore. I'm pretty sure they're going to be successful. The person who they have replacing her, however, I find hilarious because she had been very critical of Trump back in like 2015, 2016. And now all of a sudden and I forget her name and I'll think of it as soon as this podcast goes away. But yeah, that's it. Thank you. Now she's all like, he's our president. We can't do anything unless he says it. And I'm like, I mean, it's so obvious what she's trying to do. But I think they're going to be successful in getting rid of Cheney.
I guess we'll see. I mean, it really doesn't make any difference to me. I mean, long as they fight, and then they don't seem to have the unity there. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, you might get rid of her, but I don't think it's going to be a unanimous vote to get rid of her. Some people are going to not, vote to get rid of her. But well, we'll see. I mean, she hasn't attacked their party. All she's done is attack Trump. That's where she had a problem with.
But you have to realize with some of them, Trump is the party. He's the party now.
Well, no, he's not the party. I mean,
Trump is the party, definitely.
She hasn't attacked the policies of the party. Okay, Trump is just a person, and she's attacked this person, and I think everybody's afraid. I don't know why they're afraid. I mean, Trump must have something on all these people.
Apparently, because you think about, I mean, if you go way back to January 6th, where there was a apparent conversation between Trump and McCarthy. And McCarthy was like, hey, tell your supporters don't attack the Capitol. And now he's trying to, he's even been quoted, some quotes I've read from him. It's like he's denying the whole thing even happened. I mean, he's denying the attack that happened January 6th. I'm like, okay, did you not see those people? Did you not see that? I think this is what the Republican Party has always been. And it took Trump to expose them for who they truly are. I think they've been like this way back, even before Trump. I think they were teetering on this with Reagan. They got closer with George W. And now Trump has just taken it far, far right.
I think it does go back to to Reagan, and it's just getting worse. Trump just brought them all out the closet. I mean, the same, this whatever it is that they were passing, they were still passing with Trump. So it's just he's just a nasty person. That's basically it. He just wasn't that formal type. And
Yeah, but if
you're
you
not
look,
sure of what he's done as far as governing. All he seemed to have done basically is he'd been running for re-election ever since he was elected. He's out there having his rally. He's not out there selling policies or when some bill that they want to pass. He's not out here traveling to the public trying to sell them this bill, let them know what's in it, what they can expect. He's just out there running and attacking the Democratic Party, having his rallies, and that's basically all I've seen. Go overseas, make people stay at his resorts overseas, so he's getting paid.
yeah, I think I mean, not that I think Liz Cheney is some hero, because I don't think she is. I don't think she should be held up to any type of heroic standards, not only because who her father was, but her defense of the activities that her father did. But it seems it's like like I said, they're coming at her for saying a true statement, which is Trump didn't win. This goes back to our original point at the top of this whole discussion. He didn't win. Get over it. Run somebody else in 2024. Why can't you see that you lost? You lost.
She voted for
Impeachment.
Trump issues, the whole time. She didn't. I don't think she ever voted against
She,
any of his issues.
yeah, and they're missing that point, but she did vote to convict him that second time.
Well, yeah, that she did that. I mean,
And that's enough for some of them. For some of them, that
guilty.
alone is enough.
Yeah, he's guilty. She stood up and told the truth. Well, still, I guess they figured she went too far. I'm really interested in seeing what this vote count is. They've been saying that they want Cheney out. I guess McCarthy finally came out and made it official. So I'm not sure. When are they having the election in the House to see if they have enough votes to oust her from
I wondered that too, because if Democrats are involved in that vote, or is it just going to be Republicans?
Democrat. No, it's just Republicans.
Okay, because I was like, well, if Democrats are involved in it, all they have to do is vote to keep her, and she's in.
Yeah, no, it's
Okay, so it's just Republicans. Because I was like, well, how are they going to vote? I didn't even know when they're going to vote. That was the other thing that was unclear about is when this vote actually happens.
well, I believe they're in recess right now. I'm not sure when they come back. Yeah, in session. So I guess wait and see. Maybe they came back in session today.
Yeah, because I have no idea. I'm like, okay, when is this vote taking place? But I'll be curious to see if she hangs on. I'd be curious as to see which Republicans. I don't know if that vote's going to be a public vote and we'll know, or are they? If she holds on to her seat, will they start campaigning in Wyoming to bring someone else? I don't know what it is that they'll do.
I think it'll be public. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it'll be public. That information will get out one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm hoping so, because I'd be curious to see who's going to vote to keep her on, or are they all just going to play politics? But now comes my favorite part of the show, the idiot of the week. What, sir, do you say is who is this week's idiot?
My idiot of the week this week is my pillow guy, Mike Lindell.
Oh gosh.
And he just said that the employee for Dominion should turn itself in and take a plea deal to get maybe 10 to 20 years in prison. And they just don't want to let go of that lie. And because he's being sued by Dominion
Mm-hmm. Him and Giuliani.
over $1 billion.
$1 billion.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, is he getting any rest with his pillows, at night? Because I'd be kind of worried if I'm laying in bed thinking about I'm being sued for $1 billion. Okay. So, I mean, is this my pillow? Is it working for him like he says it works for everybody else?
Yeah, well, my idiot of the week, I had several that I wanted to choose, but I'm going to go back in the landmine and recycle one. My idiot of the week is Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't know if ignorant and stupid was a picture in the dictionary, would hers be right next to it? But when she started going on about how the Republican Party belongs to Trump, if she doesn't sit her ignorant sounding, the Jews put lasers in the guns to shoot at the children, conspiracy theory self down, I'm gonna just explode. She literally makes me want to vomit every time I see her face, every time I hear her voice. I'm going back and making Marjorie Taylor Greene my idiot of the week and probably a candidate for idiot of the year because she specializes in stupidity. So that's my pick for this week, especially with that whole KKK. I mean America First, and call it right, America First.
She's trying to stay relevant because her all her beliefs when she opened up her mouth and let out all this stupidity, they just made her irrelevant in Congress. All she probably doing now is just getting a paycheck and going around sprouting all this stupid stuff. She don't have a real job. She done got, kicked off all the committees and stuff.
Yeah. She definitely excels in stupidity. But again, we're coming down to the close of another show. It was a great discussion, multiple discussions today. But I thank you, Charles, for coming. And audience, remember, Tracy Takes On comes on every Friday on YouTube. So please remember to like, share, subscribe, comment, and support us on Patreon. Charles, thank you for coming with me today, and I will see you next week.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Great evening, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye now.